Hey everybody, Ryan here at eTrailer. Today on our 2013 GMC Acadia, we're going to be showing you how to install the CURT Class 3 trailer hitch receiver. But before we do that, let me check it out and make sure that this is the right hitch for you. Putting a trailer hitch like this one here on an Acadia really does make sense. You know, these are pretty big SUVs and you can do a lot with them. And so having a hitch back here is really going to help expand your opportunities on what you can actually do with your Acadia. You know, with that said, these a lot of times these are pretty popular as far as, you know, carrying around your family goes. And, you know, having a hitch back here is going to allow you to use a cargo carrier, maybe on those longer road trips, or, you know, maybe you're going to go out biking and have some fun, put a bike rack back here. Or maybe you're just planning a small little vacation. You got a pop-up camper or something like that. You know, you're also going to be able to do some towing with it. We do get a lot of questions about the removable panel that normally would go here. And, you know, if it'll go back in place with the hitch on. And unfortunately, today our customer actually removed the panel just to make sure they didn't have a hitch from the factory. Which is, you know, probably a smart thing to do. I'd recommend doing it before you end up buying a hitch and don't actually really need it. But this just pops off. You can pull it off and check and see. But I can't show you guys that today of putting it back on, but we've done a ton of these Acadias here at eTrailer, and I can speak from personal experience. Once the hitch is in place, you can indeed pop that panel back in place and completely hide the hitch. You know, it'll look totally factory. But with that said, even with it missing, it really doesn't look that bad. Honestly, really the only thing you're going to be able to see is that receiver tube opening and a little bit of the hitch, which does sit kind of further back. So, you know, regardless on what you decide to do, I think it's going to look pretty good either way. With this hitch being a Class 3, it is going to have that 2-inch by 2-inch receiver tube opening. Super common size, you know, a ton of different things will work with it. At the end of it, there will be a reinforced collar for a little bit of extra support. And it is going to use that standard 5/8 pin. Keep in mind though, a pin and clip does not come included. If you need one, not really a huge deal, you can grab it here at eTrailer. And the safety chain openings are going to be relatively small actually, but not so small that it's going to limit us. You know, for the most part, generally speaking, we're still going to be able to use just about any size hook that we might have. As far as the hitch's weight capacities go, it's going to have a 500-pound maximum gross tongue weight rating, and that's going to be the amount of weight that's pushing down on the hitch. So pretty high number. You should be able to use just about any size bike rack or cargo carrier, just to kind of give you an example. As far as the maximum gross trailer weight rating goes, that's going to be 5,000 pounds, and that'll be the amount of weight that is pulling on the hitch. So that's the weight of the trailer plus anything that you might have on it. This hitch can be used with what's called a weight distribution system, which is a separate component. And what happens is whenever you use that, it's going to help keep your trailer and your Acadia nice and level whenever you're pulling it down the road. With that said, if you do use that weight distribution, the weight capacities do increase a little bit. Tongue weight rating goes up to 600 pounds and gross trailer weight rating goes up to 6,000 pounds. With all that said, it's never a bad idea to grab your GMC's owner's manual. That way you can make sure your SUV can pull out much weight safely. And if you are, you know, going to be pulling a trailer, you want the lights to work on it. That way everyone around you knows what's going on and you'll be safe and legal. And to accomplish that, you can always grab some trailer wire. Now let's go ahead and just grab a couple of measurements. That way we can try to figure out which hitch mounted accessories are going to work best. We go from the ground to the top inside edge of the receiver tube opening. That's going to be right at about 19 inches. So if you plan on doing some towing, chances are pretty good. You can use a ball mount that has either a straight shank or one that even has a slight drop in it. You go from the center of the hitch pin hole to the edge of our rear bumper. That's going to be about 6 inches. And you can use that measurement to figure out that if any folding accessories you might have can be stored in that upright position without hitting the back of your Acadia. Just to kind of compare this hitch to some of the other ones, we'll go ahead and go with the etrailer.com hitch, for example. Compared to this one, they're very similar. I'd say the biggest difference is the finish. It kind of has a matte black carbide finish. In this case, not really a huge deal since it sits behind this panel anyway, or you know, it just kind of blends in regardless. And then as far as the draw tight hitch goes, that one has a little bit higher weight capacities and has a bracket already attached to it that you can hook some trailer wiring up to. Makes it a little more convenient. So in my opinion, that one's a little more towing oriented. So if that's what you plan on doing, you know, it might be worth checking into that one. With that said though, as far as a bracket goes, you know, it's not really a huge deal. You can always get brackets and stuff that'll work with these hitches as well. But it is nice to have one already on there. Other than that though, as far as the installation goes, it's really not too bad. I know a lot of times with these, you can have some issues with the attachment points being kind of rusty and having a hard time getting the bolts in place. But I'll show you what tool to use and kind of how to do that if that's something you run into. So, you know, you really shouldn't have a ton of hang-ups or, you know, really take up a whole lot of your time. But with that said, why don't we go ahead, pull into the garage and put the hitch on together now. To begin our installation, we're going to be here underneath the back of our Acadia, and we're going to need to lower our exhaust some. That way we can have the space that we need to work. Before we do that, we want to make sure to support the exhaust. That way we can kind of control how fast and how far we let it down. I'm just going to use a strap and run it from side to side. If you're working, you know, at home on the ground, you may not even need to bother with the strap. A lot of times you can just use a block of wood or something like that to help keep this from coming completely down. So to get the exhaust lowered on each one of our mufflers, we're going to have 2 rubber isolator hangers, and we're going to need to remove those. So you can spray it down with some penetrating oil or soapy water. Take a pry bar or a big screwdriver and work one end of that hanger. We'll go to the other side of our vehicle, get the other ones removed. And I want to mention from this point on, anything we do to one side of our vehicle, we're also going to do to the other side, so it'll be set up the same way. So with both sides of our mufflers released, we can loosen up the strap a little bit, lower it down some. And I also forgot to mention, if you have this little access panel here, go ahead and remove that. In our case, ours is just missing, but if yours is here, go ahead and pop that out. There's usually just some twist type fasteners or some plastic type fasteners that you can pull out, and this will simply just pop right out. Now what we're going to need to do is prepare our attachment points on the bottom of our frame rail. And so there's going to be 2 threaded weld nuts, one here and one here. And we want to make sure these are nice and clean, so you can spray them out with some penetrating oil. Take a brush like this and just work any gunk that may be in there. And a lot of times these are actually in decent shape, but a lot of times they can be really rusty in there. And so what you want to do is take one of the included bolts with your hitch and just see if they thread in there easily. This one's not too bad. If they go in with relative ease, you're in pretty good shape. If not, you may need to clean out the threads. And what you can do is take what's called a tap, and this essentially just kind of recuts the threads almost, makes it almost like new. And you're going to take this and you can take the tool and work that in and out, and essentially, like I said, make those new threads. And like I said, it's pretty common to have to do that on these. We do sell a kit here that'll give you this correct one. It's an M12 by 1.75. And like I said, you're just going to take that, work it up. There will be a tool here with a handle on it. You can spin that up in there. In our case, I think we'll be in pretty good shape. And so I think we'll be good to go. Now we can come to the center of our bumper beam, and we're going to have 2 attachment points, one here and one here. There's a couple different ways this can be set up. Ours has just some open holes, so we're going to be using a fishwire technique to get our hardware in. If yours is a weld nut in there, make sure it's clean, you know, just like we did the other ones. And instead of the hardware combination that we're going to use to get in there and fishwire through, you're just going to use a bolt and a conical tooth washer, and that'll thread up in there. But that's not our particular situation, so we're going to do it this way. You're going to take the coiled end of the fishwire, put it through that hole. Then you're gonna push it towards the outside of our vehicle. And what's gonna happen, what we're trying to do is get that fish wire to come out the end of our bumper beam. So just like that. Once we have it like that, we're gonna take a spacer block, put that over, and a carriage bolt. All right, so that carriage bolt will thread on. And you can feed the hardware inside of that beam. Pull down on our fish wire until we get it to drop through like that. So before we put our hitch up into place, I just want to go over the hardware combination that we're going to use on our frame rails. We're just going to take a bolt and a conical tooth washer, put the washer over, and you want the teeth to face like this. So you want it to face up towards the hitch. So when we're holding our hitch up, it's going to go through the hitch and thread into the frame rail. Now we can get our hitch in place. So you're going to take your pull wires, put them through the corresponding holes in our hitch here. You can lift this up. And once we are holding it into position, we can get some of our hardware started. And once we have one on each side going, the hitch will support itself while we work on the rest of it. For the attachment points here in the center, we're going to remove our pull wire. And for this one, we're going to take a flange nut. If you're having a hard time getting the nut started because that bolt wants to push up, you can actually kind of put some side pressure up through this hole here on that spacer block. That usually helps kind of hold it steady and make it easier to get the hardware going. Now we can come back with a 3/4 inch or 19 millimeter socket and get all the bolts snug down. And don't forget to come back with a torque wrench and tighten down all your hardware to the amount specified in the instructions. If you don't have a torque wrench, you can grab one here at eTrailer, or a lot of times you can go to your local auto parts store and they'll have one there available to rent. At this point, we can go ahead and re-hang our exhaust. So I just lubricated the hangers down again. And this time we should just be able to kind of push everything back in place by hand. And with it supporting itself once again, go ahead and remove our strap. And that'll finish up our look at and our installation of the CURT Trailer Hitch receiver here on our 2013 GMC Acadia.